passionate about Cleveland sports.
He's going in! Touchdown!
Browns, Indians, Cavs, the Big Ten, and more.
Cleveland is a city of champions once again!
Andy and Jarid, Cleveland and beyond.
A swing and a drive! To deep right!
Here are your hosts, Andy Billman and Jarid Foster.
Hello and welcome to Andy and Jarid, Cleveland and Beyond. This show is a part of the Pulse Podcast Network. I'm Jarid Watson, along with Andy Billman, and today we're going to talk about, holy cow, the Steelers are having a messy offseason with Bell and Brown being shipped off. That's going to happen. Does this mean the Browns are ready to surpass them both on the field? I don't know. We'll talk about it. Also, the Browns are making a signing of a wide receiver. And this is, as everyone's getting ready for the Combine, that's going to happen next week. So we'll talk more about that. Tristan Thompson. Andy, this is going to be kind of fun to talk about and also kind of depressing. Making news off the court as the Cavs defeat the Suns on Thursday night.
I tried getting someone from TMZ, and they just couldn't come on, but we're going to do our best today.
Some Cavs fans are more concerned about the lottery rather than winning. Is that right or wrong? I have a habit of wanting to answer all these questions as I read them. We wouldn't have a show if I did it that way. The Buckeyes are on the bubble, and Zion's shoe explosion, that made me cringe. But first, Let's hear from our friends at TixBlitz, and they are the official ticket provider for the Pulse Podcast Network.
Have you been searching for the best ticket deals around? Well, look no further. With TixBlitz, the price you see is the price you pay, and TixBlitz just happens to have over $6 billion in ticket inventory just waiting for you. They absolutely mean it when they say every ticket, every venue, everywhere. And you can save even more with promo code PULSE in all caps to save you 5% off your total purchase. Just go to TixBlitz.com and click the search bar. Search events based on your geographic location, pick the show you want, and bam, it's showtime. Sporting events, Broadway shows, concerts, and more with TixBlitz.com. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for the email newsletter so you can stay up to date on the latest news and savings with TixBlitz. That's TixBlitz.com, TixBlitz.com. Every ticket, every venue, everywhere.
Just use the promo code PULSE for 5% off. That's PULSE, P-U-L-S-E. The promo code for 5% off. It's got a wide variety of tickets from sporting events to music concerts. You know the deal. Check it out. It's easy to use. TixBlitz.com. I'll spell it for you. TixBlitz.com. Andy, we're going to start off, obviously, as we have the past handful of shows here.
Cleveland Browns.
Talking about the Browns, but in a sense, we're talking about everything that's going on around the Browns to start this. The Pittsburgh Steelers have really stolen the headlines, and it's been a nice distraction from a move that the Browns made a few weeks ago, among other distractions that have popped up in the news today as we record this that we'll get into later. Andy, though, I got to admit, and I've said this as this drama has unfolded between Le'Veon Bell and the Steelers and Antonio Brown and the Steelers, I get great pleasure in it, especially when I'm watching Steelers fans on social media, because they are not good at maintaining their composure whatsoever from what I see. We've also got the Robert Kraft stuff going on. Andy, what the hell's going on in this? It's a very loud off season.
It is. I think, you kind of alluded to it. I think the Browns fan base needed this. This was obviously unannounced. We kind of knew Brown and Bell were going to be in the headlines, but boy, Brown came out. I think we should start with Antonio Brown.
Okay, yeah.
I think he's had an interesting 10 days, and I think it's fair to say that the Steelers fans are freaking out. The Browns have seen this type of behavior at times. It hasn't been through signings, but it's been through other displays of animosity and anger, or quarterbacks jumping on swans. We've seen this kind of, where it just, I would call it like a distraction. Now, usually it happens during the season. For the Steelers, it's happening during the offseason. But Brown has broken some new territory here, Jarid, where he has not just called out the Steelers. he basically called his own meeting. He basically told teams what he wants. He is, I mean,
He said, call me.
with guaranteed money.
Yes.
I mean, he is really, I gotta say, Antonio Brown's really made some brash things.
He fits the NFL wide receiver diva profile
Yeah,
more than anyone at this point right now,
I'll
right?
be honest with you. He to me, to your point, is okay, this is a good comparison. He is around T.O. He's getting closer and closer and closer to Owens. Owens was really unique. I mean, sit-ups in the driveway to getting in fights with Donovan McNabb behind the ESPYs. I mean, he
Crying
was a
about
special
his quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, he Owens was really unique. But I'll say this, what Brown said, I mean, to just recap, he made a bunch of comments on Instagram. He also made a comment about Roethlisberger, saying he had an owner mentality.
That's almost the same as saying slave mentality, because that has been said about owners in the past, and I am going to go ahead and connect those dots.
I think the other thing here, too, that is going on that we should allude to at the end, this is Ben's team. So let's hold that thought.
It still is. The fans are heavily in the organization's corner,
question.
in Ben's corner, and you know what? They're going down with the ship, in my opinion.
Well,
and
I agree.
I'm not defending AB on this though. I do think the Le'Veon Bell issue is a separate issue and should be taken as such. But Lord knows that fans in Pittsburgh, you're talking about Rust Belt North, you're talking about Western Pennsylvania. It's a you're either with us or against us type of mentality, blue collar, and I think that they're going to lump both of those issues into the same pot.
Well, yeah, let's put Ben to the end. And to comment on Ben, and I want to go to, because that's next year, the GM agreed with Ben, saying that he backed up Ben pretty tightly. And now we'll go to the end on that. No, right. So then Antonio Brown goes, I want guaranteed money. He goes on Instagram, says a bunch of things. Le'Veon Bell then on Wednesday says, hey, I'm finally going to be an unrestricted free agent. All along, too, with Antonio Brown, should go back to that. Rosenhaus then and Antonio Brown and the Steelers have a meeting. Brown will be traded. So that right there is a lot for any organization. For the Steelers, it's probably an earthquake of 89 proportions in San Francisco. It's a lot. I think Tony Grossi said it best. There's a lot of bridges in Pittsburgh, and boy, did Antonio Brown blow them all up in the last 10 days.
That's clever.
I mean, I know. That's why I do too. Karate Grossi. That was a great line. So I don't want to steal it without giving proper credit. But what I also think there too, though, Jared, the finish, let's go on Brown first, then we'll get to Bell. So I think they are separate, but they have one quality or uniqueness to it.
Yeah.
Brown.
I think I know where you're going to go with it, but go ahead and get there.
Right. Brown, to me, is fascinating because he was playing on such a high level, and it kind of came out of nowhere. I think there's a couple factors here. I don't know if the Juju Smith-Schuster thing, if they got along. I don't know. I have no inside sources on that. Juju really broke out there. That sometimes can set someone off. Something really did happen with Roethlisberger, where he was going more to Juju and he wasn't going enough to Antonio Brown? I don't know. I also think that the whole Le'Veon Bell situation really threw off the Steelers from day one. And I think the other thing that's really gone on with the Steelers that I've noticed is they're getting older. This team is getting very to the point of the end. They had a winning record. Yes, they did some things. They're very smart. I know Tomlin isn't the most popular coach, but I think he's still a good coach.
Yeah.
With that said, I think the Steelers squeezed the orange for every win this year. And I think Le'Veon Bell, now to get to him, really set the tone. Now, Le'Veon Bell didn't think he was getting paid, and it was for a long contract because he's a running back.
Oh, and it was and there was the workhorse issue. There was the no break issue.
Again, I think Le'Veon Bell is unique there because he is a running back, and he knows that his time is now for the big contract.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is that's interesting about Bell is along the way he obviously.
Andy is getting over something awful, by the way, folks. So
on Wednesday,
take your time, Andy. I feel terrible.
On Wednesday, I've been doing commercials for Ricola. But by the way, I'm happy to do that if they pay me.
Yeah.
So going back to the Bell burned bridges all along the way because even the year before he had ticked people off, it really carried over and manifested itself to this year. People forget, even Brown wasn't happy with Bell. So the whole Le'Veon Bell situation has really manifested itself. That to me, now the one connection here, Brown out of nowhere, I really felt this was out of nowhere, just had a pity party for himself in week 17, and it all turned into this. Like, you always heard things about Brown, but it really flared up. I mean, Jared, it flared up fast in week 17 against the Bengals.
Let's get to the other issue then. Let's break this down a little bit more, and let's talk about Brown and Bell in this sense. One of the things that they want is money, and they want out of Pittsburgh. Who is going to take these damaged goods, and who is going to give them the money that they want? I feel like they did not do a good job of protecting their own personal brands throughout this entire mess. That I'm not going to lay blame. I just can't, because I know probably the passive aggressive nature of Ben Roethlisberger at the podium and throwing some of these guys under the bus and making it, I can't, I'm not here to figure out the blame game. I'm just here to watch it all burn. But where do these guys think they're going to go and get the money that they want? And it's not going to happen in the division, right?
Well, no. Well, let's take this. Well, Le'Veon Bell's different. Le'Veon Bell's going to go where he wants. Now, Antonio Brown,
he's a running back, and I don't know how long that lasts. Yes.
See, I think Le'Veon Bell's
you can argue
different.
Fresh legs, but you can also argue a year without playing.
All right, so let's go. Okay, there's a lot there.
I know.
And I don't want to break it too much
That's
down.
why it's been killing my brain.
I know. So let's go to the first part. Part of this is actually on the Steelers organization.
Right.
The GM, I wouldn't say the Rooneys, but I'd say the GM, Tomlin, and Roethlisberger, and that's a team of 3. They did not handle either one of these situations well. It's a one-off with Le'Veon Bell, if that's the only thing you got, right? It's a one-off. Hey, it's a one-term thing. It's a one-player thing. It happens in every organization in time to time. But to have 2 of the exact same things have a really big meltdown on social media.
You're starting a trend.
Jared, it's a big trend. And
you're going to split the locker room.
Well, Jared, even beyond that, they've already done that. These are big-time players that make impacting games. Antonio Brown was on the cover of a video game, the video game, Madden. Le'Veon Bell was in the Pro Bowl. Antonio Brown was in the Pro Bowl 2 years ago. These are big-time play-making players. Le'Veon Bell, one thing, he really did overestimate what the Steelers were going to do, so he really messed up last year. But here's the good thing about Le'Veon Bell. Antonio Brown second. Let's get to Le'Veon Bell first. Le'Veon Bell has been helped because of Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown seems like such a mess right now that Le'Veon Bell, probably some people's like, I don't even remember Le'Veon Bell's problems because I don't want Antonio Brown. I think Antonio Brown has really got a tough, I think he's made this tough for the Steelers. Because if I'm the Niners...
Well, the comment itself about guaranteed money and call me, that's...
Jared,
it's not
if I were any
you.
team,
nobody wants that. Nobody wants
Jared,
that.
Exactly. Jared, if I were any team, I'd be like, look, Antonio Brown, to take a breath, Antonio Brown is one of the best wide receivers in the league when he's healthy, okay? He still is. And by the way, he had a weird year, but he can play at a big-time level. And Antonio Brown will kick ass. I know it sucks to say this, but he won't be a Steeler, but he will kick ass wherever he goes next year.
And Steelers fans need to have that statement come out of their mouths, too, because they refuse to admit that he is good.
Yes. Oh,
at this point, they are acting like he is. You were nothing. You were only Juju's better than you. These are the things that these fans think in their minds just so they could sleep at night. And I love it. I love it.
By the way, I'll add this to it. Here's how good Antonio Brown is. Can you imagine him playing for the Chiefs next year?
Oh.
The Chiefs would be impossible to stop. Okay.
Browns fans think, could you imagine him playing for the Browns next year?
Well, Raul, that, by the way, the Steelers have announced publicly the 3 teams we all know, Ravens, Browns, Bengals, or no. The fourth's the Patriots, because the Patriots and Steelers hate each other.
Right.
So those are the 4 teams they're not going to trade to.
Right. We know.
Could you imagine Antonio Brown playing for the Packers and Aaron Rodgers?
Steelers let somebody go and made a big mistake with that a couple of years ago with the Patriots.
Well, that's my point. It's like, right, but it's like Jared.
Everyone saw it coming, too.
Antonio Brown can make a big impact. I think Le'Veon Bell will make a big impact too.
Yeah, I think so too. At least for a season.
Right. So whatever people can say is sure. Now, that's all Steelers stuff. The one thing I do want to comment on, I guess to leave it on this point, Le'Veon Bell will land somewhere. I think it won't take long. Now, Antonio Brown, I think, is going to be an interesting dance. Because, again, I think teams are going to play hardball, as they should, saying, hey, look, I'll give you a third-round pick for this guy. Yes, he's a first-round traded talent, but it's a third-round pick because of everything that just happened. You're in a corner. You're in a box.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I don't understand what the Steelers did here. They have put themselves in a box. And by the way, that's the reason why they couldn't franchise tag or transition tag Bell, because they can't handle all of this. So now all this moves aside. Now let's go to next year for the Steelers, and then we'll get to the Browns. The Steelers next year have a lot of pressure to win, because if they don't win and you just let go 2 of your more talented players going to free agency. See, here's the thing that Pittsburgh's going to feel that the Browns have felt in the past. It's one thing to say, oh, sure, we're the Steelers who take people on. And I'm not naive. Ben Roethlisberger can still play. I hate saying that, but he can still play. He can still play.
Sure, whatever. I don't care. Say it. Say it all you want, Andy. I don't care.
No, he's a good quarterback. But this is going to have damaging effects as the year goes on. Because in a big spot, and we've all been there, and Ben's not quite feeling it, and you need someone to make a play, you got Connors, and you got Juju.
And you got Big Ben trying to bite off more than he can chew, and throwing 3 interception games. And I don't think he's going to have the 300-plus yard games as often as he used to.
No.
But those interceptions are still going to come. Andy, I'm going to call it right now. Bold prediction. Hot take.
Oh, boy. Can I put this on
Steelers,
my picks
You can.
for
You
tomorrow?
can mark it, put it on the calendar. This is my genuine, honest-to-God feeling about this, and I've kept it to myself for a while. Steelers finish 500.
Okay. All right. Well, that I agree with, too. Here's the thing I'll say about Pitt, and let's transition to the Browns. Pitt next year, I would not be surprised they come out blazing. In fact, I don't want the Browns to play the Steelers in the first 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, I don't think they haven't put that schedule out.
No, they don't come out with that until April.
Yeah,
but I hope the Browns play them later in the years. I think the Steelers will be very motivated to prove people wrong. But I think what you're alluding to,
I don't think that's even going to help them. But go ahead.
Nah, I think it will. I think Ben can play. But here's the thing, Jared. As the season wore on and Antonio Brown probably started checking out, how good did the Steelers really look outside of that Patriot game? And they didn't play that great in a Patriot game. Patriots just laid an egg in that game, and they still won somehow. So, I mean, the Raider game, the Bengal game, these are games where they did not look smooth. They didn't look great. So I do agree with you about that. Now, here's the reverse, because this was a Browns podcast. The Browns now have a lot of pressure already to win. This is going to add
when it goes
pressure.
beyond the Steelers, it goes over to, do we want to jump into the Browns yet, or do we want to highlight the issues that we're looking at with the Ravens and the issues that we're looking at with the Bengals?
So Joe Flacco's gone. Now, that's not the issue. The issue is, not an issue. The question is, Lamar Jackson now has this ship.
And we know that's not the guy in my mind.
By the way, you and I are with that. You're listening to the wrong podcast if you want to hear positive things about Lamar Jackson. Nice kid. By the way, he torched the Browns with his legs in that game.
Fine. Great. I know. I'm bitter about it.
He torched us. But again, do I think
Greg
that's
Williams' defense?
Greg Williams playing for the Jets. Salute. I just think, again, Lamar Jackson, that's an interesting thing. And then the Bengals, they hired their coach, but they don't have a D coordinator hired yet. Less than a week out from the combine. Jared, that is so bizarre.
Who's even out there right now?
Jared, I don't know. By the way, I don't want to know. I mean, that is such... For a team that just hired an offensive-minded coach.
Could they bring Hugh in to run the defense?
At this point,
I know.
I don't know what
That's how absurd it is.
Is Marlon Lewis available? Can you imagine he came back as defensive coordinator? But my point being is like the
Make
Bengals.
a hell of a podcast.
The Bengals are off to a slow start.
Right.
They can say whatever they want. They can spin it. They can do whatever they want.
They're in tail chasing mode.
They really are. And the weird thing is, Jared, if I go on talent with rosters, aside from Dalton's, I'm not a Dalton guy. The Bengals do have talent. They have drafted well. Like they have players that can play. It's such a disorganized mess.
Are they drafting a quarterback this year, possibly too, Andy?
I don't know.
I think it's there. I think the possibility's there.
We'll see. I think the Bengals don't usually, Jared, usually the Bengals don't do that stuff. Usually the Bengals play from year to year.
Yeah, but they're in a mode where the changes are...
They don't have a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know what the Bengals are doing.
Oh, my God.
I mean, honestly... I love it because they are behind. One guy wrote it.
The reason I wanted to circle around is because now I want it. Go ahead. What you were going to say something? Sorry about the Bengals.
No worries. I mean, look, the Ravens it's Lamar Jackson's team. Now they won the division. The Browns went 1-1. I think the Bengals are off to a slow start. The Steelers we just went through. So the Browns will have a lot of pressure already to make the playoffs. They should have a lot of pressure to win this division. Now, I do agree with this point. I want to make this a big point. So I'm going to bring it back to the Steelers for a second. Cleveland didn't beat Pitt last year. And they need to start doing that. And so I think a big thing to be pointed out here is, in a weird way...
I think they sweep the series next year. I'm calling that too.
I hope you're right.
Hey, I'm dead serious. I know. This is
Browns
not
have a lot of
old Browns.
No, I agree with you. But, Jared, there's a lot of pressure on the Browns to beat the Steelers next year. I know. I'm just being honest. And,
I'm cocky.
I know you are.
As
I like
everything
it.
right
I like
now.
it.
I
by
really
way,
am.
By the way, I love everything Browns, Steelers. I love everything Browns, Ravens. And by the way, at the end of the day, I think the Browns go 5-1, 4-2 in the division. I really do.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're going to go next year.
Win a stupid one against, or lose a dumb one against the Bengals. Maybe.
It's hard
something crazy.
But by the way, even the Patriots don't go 6-0 in the division. So,
No,
and they
of
play in
course
the
not.
worst division in football. So now that's going to
they
change.
lose, and they have a habit of playing terrible against Miami, which is always
Miami.
hilarious.
So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that, you always lose a game in the division. So you got to say one. But again, bring it back. All these teams though are still decent, Jared. The Browns just need to keep focused and I think they will. I think the Browns are on their way. I think the Browns are going to take over this division. I'm not pumping the brakes. All I'm saying is the big results I want to see are 4-2, 5-1, and you need to be and it just needs to be said until it happens. You got to beat Pitt once. I don't care if it's at home. I don't care if it's at Hines. You got to beat them once.
I think the biggest, the most important part of winning that many games in the division is making the right improvements on defense.
Well, I think it also goes to...
That's where I feel like our issues are going to come in.
Yes and no. They did not beat the Ravens last year in that game, and that game always kind of sticks in my craw until next year. They had chances in that game to make plays. They had a 1st down and 10, and they didn't even get a yard, and they ended up having a 4th down where the ball got tipped. Those are the kind of things that always kind of stick in my craw. Jared, those are kind of things next year... you're going to have a game like that late in the year in one of these division games on the road. I hope you make the plays there to get in field goal range and kick the kick. Because from that distance, I think it was, 55, 56, 57-yarder? So still, that's a hard kick. The Browns need to do a better job. So you're saying
special teams is more important than defense?
No, I'm saying offense, too. You got to make plays in big spots.
Well,
now, Mayfield made a lot of big plays against the Broncos, certainly against the Panthers. He made that drive, too. Like the Jets game, they led the team down the field. So there's moments. But that game against the Ravens was a good defensive team on the road. The Browns are going to be more of those spots now, Jared, because teams are going to take them real seriously.
We also know, though, those are young team mistakes, too. Those are, a lot of those gaffes come from being young.
I'm being realistic. I think the Browns are going to be good next year. I think the Browns are going to win 9+ games.
I think they can win 10-12. Yeah.
I love that you think that way.
Dude, I'm not kidding. Look, I've been holding this back for a long time.
Okay, well.
I've saved it. And what do listen, we've got so much time, but I feel like everyone is afraid to just say what they truly feel about what's going to happen because of their typical hesitation of what the Browns have been. And I am no longer there. I am not bound to those chains of being a loser. I'm just not.
No, I'm not either. And again, I think
I know you're not.
I think the Browns are going to be a 9 or 10-win team.
I am
think even
being
possibly
objective
more.
when I say that. I'm not being biased.
No.
I'm looking at the team. I'm looking at the leadership. I'm looking at the moves they will make, hypothetically, in my mind at this point for some of them.
I know.
Giving chances to guys that somehow take advantage of the chances that they've been given. And if those things play out, because of the good leadership that they have,
yes,
it's going to be what I say. It's going to be 10-plus wins.
No, I think the Browns, because of the quarterback, Mayfield's the guy. I think they will get better on defense because of Wilkes. I think they'll get better because he'll know how to use peppers. I'm excited about that. I know the Browns are going to be better next year. There's no question about that. All I'm saying is there are boxes they have to check still. Not a lot. There's still boxes, and one of them you have to check, beat Pitt.
Maybe this will...
You got to beat Pitt.
Maybe this will make a little more sense, or at least be a little more palatable to some people that still have the hesitation and aren't exactly where I am. This division right now looks very much like what the Indians have had for the past 3 years in the AL Central. You're looking at teams that are floundering, that are trying to figure their lives out, and it's right there for the taking.
As I mentioned, now here's where I will agree with you. There's a transitioning guard happening in the AFC and NFC and NFL. I felt it weeks ago. And
I think the
it's
organization
happening.
feels it.
And I think the Browns are going to be at the forefront. I think the Chiefs are going to be at the forefront. I think the Colts are going to be at the forefront. I think those three teams in the AFC are going to be three teams you're going to hear about a lot in the next couple of years. I really do. And that excites me. And here's where I do agree with Jared, and I'll hit this on the hammer. The Browns are not only expected, I think they will, and they should win the division. They just have to hit these check boxes, though.
They have to. I know.
And these are check boxes they have to do. Late drives in a road game, got to make that field goal, got to get in field goal position. Got to beat Pitt. Got to do that. Because those are things, until you do that, they're still around you. We'll leave it there for today because that's going way too far down the rabbit hole, and there's free agency and shit, unless you want to talk about anything else in that middle. But here's the last thing I'll say about the Browns.
I think we're good.
I think we're good, right? Here's the last
free agency, we've heard some of the rumors about. I've even heard the rumors of Ndamukong Suh being some of the. I don't really necessarily. You know my feelings on that guy.
But okay, ready, real quick. Why would you do that in this draft? This is a draft that's loaded with defensive tackles.
Loaded with defense. You could close your eyes, and it's like spinning the globe and closing your eyes and picking your spot. Where you want a vacation. Like it'll be good no matter what.
Here's the one thing I love, though. The Browns need to work on the defensive line. You and I have pressed that, and they need to impress their linebackers. They need to do both those things a lot. You've already added a playmaker, which we're going to get to in a second. And, you really do need to focus on pass rusher, interior line to stop the run, and another playmaker on defense.
I still think linebacker is important.
Again, playmaker on defense is usually linebacker or our defensive end. You need players.
For some reason, I was feeling like secondary, but okay.
No, I think secondary, they're good, though. I mean, you just drafted Ward. My God, they cleaned that secondary up a lot. What are you worried about in the secondary? I'm curious. I'm not worried about the secondary.
It still goes back to Ward and his head.
No, I hear you. Well, draft another quarterback. I mean, the Browns they put so much work into the secondary last year. I would be focusing more on the front seven.
Yeah, the defensive lineman would be nice. Another person.
D tackle is needed. It's been written about a lot.
Well, and my thing is, it's going to happen. I mean, I feel like those are automatics.
Yeah. One thing I should mention, I didn't put in the rundown. The Browns rated last in tackling in Pro Football Focus. They were last, and by a wide margin, they're the worst tackling team in the league according to them.
That's been a trend.
And if you look back at our notes
for 19 years,
and you listen back to our podcast, there were many games where Jared and I said after the game, boy, poor tackling. Boy, tackling was weak. Even in games that the Browns
probably
won.
4 or 5 games into the season where it really got awful, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and I'd even circle games too, like the Panthers game. The Browns got away with it and they won. But there was some poor tackling in that game. We're all being honest Abes here, right? The two exceptions that I saw from the Browns was the Bronco game. I thought they tackled really well in that game. They did a great job on Lindsey, and the Falcon game. the Browns did an excellent job in the Falcon game. They shut Julio Jones down. There was no yak for a team that loves that kind of stuff. The Browns were excellent in their tackling. Outside of that, Jared, really, the Browns had a lot of issues here and there in spots in every other game.
Hey, I need to say, by the way, Andy, we talked about this being a compact, tight, well-focused podcast that was only going to last about 30 minutes.
Well,
and we are about to blow through that.
Yes, we are. Well, hopefully people
I still think it's got good focus. I think that what we've talked about is absolutely valid and worth your time in regard to listening. I just had to throw that out there because I thought you'd get a kick out of it.
No, yeah, that's very true. Well,
we haven't even talked about the Jalen Strong signing.
No, yeah. Well, okay, real quickly, and then let's go back to Kraft and let's move on.
Let's add a little more fun.
Jalen Strong is. I don't want to elaborate on this. Strong has not played in football last year. He got cut by the Jaguars in April of last year. Jalen Strong really is a flyer. It doesn't mean it's not going to work. It could work, but Jalen Strong...
Funny you use that because he's from Philadelphia, too.
Right. Jalen Strong is just that. It's a chance.
It's nothing more. This is not Brashad Perryman.
No.
This is a kid who was a third-round draft pick who played for the Texans, who it didn't last there. He's played 20 total games. He's had maybe 300-plus yards, four touchdowns.
Very low numbers.
In those games. Nothing impressive, but you're looking at a guy who's 6'2", 215, and, let's throw him a bone.
He's got the body. He definitely has the athleticism. But, again...
And he's in a position with a team that I feel like, again, with the right people around him, maybe something happens. But I'm not counting on any of that. Andy, I really didn't. I barely flinched at this move.
Fifth, sixth string
nice.
At the best. I'm telling you, fifth, sixth string on a depth chart.
Practice squad.
Whatever. I mean, that's what you're really looking at there.
Yeah.
The other quick news that did not happen to the Browns either was Robert Kraft, which came out on Friday, which is today. We're taping this podcast. He has been charged with a misdemeanor solicitation of prostitution in South Florida. By the way, at a strip mall. And which I found to be interesting. And then what was more sad and bigger part of the story should be, before we get on the field, the human trafficking is a bigger...
and that's where I believe more charges could end up coming from it, some of this. And the other rumors are that Robert Kraft is not the biggest name to come out of this list.
Well, there's a whole lot of nastiness in this whole thing. That's for other people to talk about. I will say this about Robert Kraft and this whole story. We won't know this until down the road. So what I'm saying is just something I'm curious about. This is what I do. I document and, I like to produce and direct this stuff. I'm interested to see if this is the date and moment where finally the Patriots run maybe starts sliding down.
Really?
Because
I didn't even think of it that way.
When
you
usually have moments like this, it's usually I'm just interested to see, do the Patriots play as much zip? Do they play as well? Because Robert Kraft is not just Robert Kraft, the owner. Robert Kraft is very visual. You see him a lot on TV screens.
He's very much like the Jerry Jones of the world.
He really is. He is a big part of that community. Boston adores him.
Right. I was going to say, in a better light. And I think, and he's still going to get the empathy from them. I mean, this is a guy who we're talking about. He's lost his wife, correct? And so he's been living kind of this back and growing his hair out. And
I'll say this, Jared. It's been very quiet so far. Very quiet. Because I think people are waiting to see how this plays out. Because he came out
and he had the statement that said that he's categorically denying that any of this is true. Lord knows, though, the cops down there in Florida, they've got the cameras. The stuff is there. They've got some of this stuff on video.
The guy said in a press conference, we saw him, his voice, his visual, Robert Kraft, and we saw him not just at the spa, we saw him concluding the payment and execution of sex. There's nothing else that needs to be said.
Yeah.
Look, this whole crap. I don't want to go on a tangent about this for political.
Well, we can go on another tangent, Andy. How about the crap about owners being held to a higher standard?
Well, I think
and being punished more. Well, there was another one who was blowing cocaine who seemed to get away with a lot of that stuff too, right?
I thought Irsay got properly slapped. I don't agree. I think Irsay got properly slapped, and he actually, I thought he did everything he needed to do there. He got a 6-game suspension. He paid a $500,000 fine.
And I will also say that there is a difference in
Huge.
doing cocaine
Huge.
and soliciting prostitution because there's a victim in one and the other
Yes.
one is a victimless crime.
Correct. And human trafficking is a bigger thing here too. And that's the thing that's going to be really played into this. And that's really the big human story here, which should be focused on.
Yeah.
For people who don't understand, human trafficking has been going on, I guess, at these spas in South Florida now for a while.
It's not just there, Andy. It's really
It's
everywhere.
everywhere, right.
There's
So
in Northeast Ohio, local news put out a story saying that there were 200 or at least 200 that are suspected of being
That's
victims
awful.
of human trafficking in the Youngstown, Northeast Ohio area.
It's terrible.
One of the
Terrible.
local stations, I don't remember if it was WFMJ or one of them, but it showed up in my feed today, and it was obviously a response to this. There's nothing new here. There's
No.
nothing new here. The busts happen in those spas, and I'll tell you right now, I lived in Korea, and that was the human trafficking. It happens the same way here as it happened over there. It's people
Right.
that think they're doing a job, that they're gonna make money and be able to send money home to their families,
Right.
and they end up being in this indentured servitude style
Yep.
living where they have their passports taken from them. They can't go anywhere. They have to live in, by 5 to 10 in an apartment building, and their job is to do nothing but take care of whoever comes into whatever that
That's-
facility is.
Well, perform an illegal act, and it's awful. The whole thing's awful.
Yeah.
It's terrible. And it's good that police officers and that investigations are going on to stop this stuff. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Kraft. Here's
Yeah.
something else to keep in mind, and spinning it back to the Browns. Kraft has peed and pissed and moaned about Roger Goodell for a while now. It's going to be interesting to see if Roger Goodell takes a look at this. And I'm sure Roger had a very heavy Cheerio day, saying, "God damn it, I don't need this stuff in my life," and whatever else. But I wonder if there's a part of Roger Goodell goes, "Oh, really, Mister? I did wrong by Deflategate. You hated me, boy. Your players wore T-shirts. Your defensive coordinator wore a nasty T-shirt that really poked fun of me." It's going to be interesting to see how Roger Goodell handles this, because this
Without
is
bias, of course, Andy. That's
not at all. Why would you say that? Why be
With no
vindictive?
bias.
I'm just saying.
Oh boy,
Big-
it'll be
big-
fun to watch. I think we're going to have to keep watching this play out. And
Yes.
again, to jump back to what I had alluded to earlier in the podcast when we were starting to go through the rundown of what we were going to talk about today, the reason why Andy and I I don't want to say got a kick out of it, but this really took a lot of attention away from the Browns and making that signing of Kareem Hunt. All of this stuff.
Yeah, right. No, okay, you're right. Kareem
We can't
Hunt.
ignore that on the news side of things. Not
No, no, no,
necessarily
no.
that
Well,
we're saying,
okay.
"Oh, well, thank God." I mean, we're just saying
No,
we're acknowledging that
no.
this is a.
By the way, Kareem Hunt's going to come back in April when minicamp starts. So
Yeah.
Kareem Hunt's just gone away. It's not dead. It's just gone away. But the Browns, because of, again, Antonio Brown, what he did, that made so much news and noise, and it was in your face because of what he was doing on Instagram and social media. And then you go to Robert Kraft, what happened in the last 24 hours. Kareem Hunt now is in the middle pages of the newspaper, not on the back page. He's kind of in the middle somewhere. So the Browns got a reprieval for this for the moment. I still think that's going to come back. So yes, they're right now the Kareem Hunt story, which I thought would build more steam. I never anticipated all of this to happen in the last 2 weeks, but boy, it has.
Yeah,
And it's been in your
yeah.
face.
The cycle is fast, and this is
Well,
this is
Antonio
supposed to be the
Brown-
quietest time. This is where, if I'm going to hear stories, it's going to be wide receivers out on yachts.
Manny
throwing
Machado
parties.
being signed by the Padres. Even that got muffled.
Oh yeah, well, there's multiple reasons for that, and
Well, we'll get to that at the end. But yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, here's the things to
I've
remember.
got my opinion on those moves too.
I do too.
I say spend your money, go for it, waste it. But anyway,
Yes.
go ahead.
Yes. But so that's the Kareem Hunt side of things. So I think the Browns do get a breath of fresh air, and they should take
Yeah.
advantage of it because they are going to need it, because this will cycle back around.
Yep.
Again, minicamp time, we'll get back to that then, but the Kareem Hunt story is going to get brought up again. The one other thing that I want to bring up quickly, like I said, turning of the guard I brought up, they hammer that home. I do think this is one of these moments we should mark down, because it's when usually moments like this happens in sports into a franchise, it takes something out of the team, and people don't think it does. An owner like Bob Kraft, I think it's going to take some things out of the Patriots.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if it didn't. Here's the last thing, too, I want to bring up. I'm not defending anything, but I'm just bringing this up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Haslams have been really shit on a lot in the last few years, and fairly so at times.
Right.
What happened today with Robert Kraft, what I just want everybody to realize is no one at times really knows what goes on in any organization and what really goes on behind closed doors, because Robert Kraft was idolized in this part of the country I lived in. Just be remembering every time you want to say Haslam's crazy or Haslam's a bad owner and all this stuff. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong or fair. Just remember at times things like this that happen make you realize too, like, hey, there's all this crap sometimes that's flying around and we don't even know what's going on. Don't be a believer what's in the media headlines, and don't be a believer what's going on in the big strokes.
I think the sooner you can realize the construct of morality and law-abiding and being this perfect human being is all this man-made invention in our own minds, the more that you can realize that and realize that these are just normal people who just happen to have a lot of money and make the same dumbass mistakes as anyone else, the sooner you can do that, then it becomes more believable. I don't know.
Well, I just think with Kraft really is, it's not, what's the proper word? It's shocking how it's rolled out or whatever. But I think what this needs to allude to people everywhere, there's a lot of stuff that goes on that is never being reported or is going on behind closed doors.
There's a lot. That people need to covered up that isn't getting caught.
Right. So for everything that's going on, and again, I'm not saying it's wrong. There's been some stuff that Haslam deserved really so got hammered for. Just remember, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in every organization, okay? Mm-hmm. And today was a perfect example because really Kraft, again, I will leave it on this. He was the owner. I would say the Rooneys, the Tishes with the Giants, and I would say really Bob Kraft. Those are three guys. Like, I know offhand, it's like, you know where they sit in the owner's box. You see them during a game. Yeah. You know, before Woody was going to do stuff over in Ireland, you'd always see the Jets owner, Woody Johnson, in the box and stuff. Yeah. But really, Kraft, you always see Kraft at the games. Rooney is always shown in the box when he's at the game. Tishes, to have one of their big standing guards. Jerry Jones, obviously, too. Arthur Blank with the Falcons. For this kind of thing to happen on that level with a Robert Kraft, it just shows there's a lot of stuff that goes on. And
you don't know what goes on behind people's closed doors in their own lives. I know.
I always tell people that. I'm like, a lot of stuff does not get reported. Just remember. Anyways, I don't want to go too far down that post, but just wanted to bring that up, so I thought it was fair. Okay, let's wrap all this up. So we both believe the Browns are the heavy favorites anyways. I think what happened this week now, we can hammer that home. Yeah. The Jalen Strong thing is just a flyer. And again, I think it's time to mark from afar. I felt this way after the Bronco win because of what I saw from the Steelers-Patriots game. I think there's a transition happening in the league. And I think the Browns are on the good side of it. I think the Chiefs are on the good side of it. I think the Colts are on the good side of it. I think the teams like the Steelers and Pats, I know the Pats just won, but I'm telling you, I think even that those teams are getting older. And they're starting to have things chip away. And what's happened to the Steelers and the Patriots in the last 24 to 48 hours, Jared, I think it kind of plays to that point that I made back in December.
Well, as the combine winds down, we're going to jump back into even more of this, get more in depth, do a roster review, especially obviously of the Cleveland Browns.
Yes.
Before free agency starts on March 13th. So we'll be looking forward to doing that.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is 8-Bit Ray from the Gorilla Brain Podcast, part of the Pulse Podcast Network. Did you know that you could be using this spot to advertise your company or business? Well, I've done the research, and podcastinsights.com report that podcast listeners are loyal, affluent, and mostly college educated. But most importantly, are 5 times more likely to interact with the ad they hear on their favorite podcast than an ad from any other medium. If you would like to advertise your company or brand with our network, it's simple. All you have to do is send an email to marketing@pulsepodcastnetwork.com. I'll say it one more time. marketing@pulsepodcastnetwork.com. And and we hope to hear from you soon.
Back to on the field, on the court.
Cleveland Cavaliers.
The Cavs played this week. They beat the Suns. I'm actually going to lead off here, as I think the other story is the bigger story, so that'll be a good way to end. They beat the Suns. Jared and I were debating this offline, so I'll bring it up now. Some fans were upset that the Cavs won the game, some because it hurts them in the lottery, which it does. I mean, it's another win. I do think it's a good thing when the Cavs win. I reminded this to Jared, so I'm going to bring it up now. The Cavs have a brutal schedule starting right around the tournament through the end of the year.
So take that win for what it's worth.
I'm telling you,
it's
I don't know how many
it's
more
not going to
wins
turn into a winning streak.
It's really not. That cough brought to you by strep throat. Strep throat can happen to anybody, anytime.
They're not paying you, though.
They're not paying me for that. Goddamn kids, wash your hands out there. So, reminder out there to all Cavs fans, this is just a one singular moment night, and I think it's good to beat the Suns, the Knicks, the Bulls. Beat those teams. You don't want to be this bottom feeder team. Beat those teams. I actually think it's more important to beat those teams in the upper echelon. Beat these other teams to show that you got more than them, because the Cavs really are playing with, even with Love back, they're not better than, I mean, really, these are the only teams they can beat. And truthfully, I don't want to go on a tangent. It's surprising where the Suns are at. That is a mess of an organization.
Wow.
They've had high draft picks, and that is a city that loves basketball.
Yeah.
And they are just a disaster. So I think it's a good thing the Cavs win. And just a reminder, too, the bottom three teams, which are right now, the Suns and Knicks are tied for 11 wins, and the Cavs are in the third slot. They have 13. The Bulls have 14, so they're the next team up after that. The first three teams all have really thin percentages between who's got better lottery chances. So if you're 1 or 2 or 3, unlike previous years, it isn't like you're going 2 or 3 percentage points. You're going decimal points. It's not a lot, Jared.
Yeah.
So don't get too fractured if you finish second or it doesn't matter.
And we all know too
matter.
that the Cavs getting 2 number 1 picks out of the lottery like that was the odds that those are not good odds.
No, they're not.
That does not happen, even when the odds were more in their favor.
Correct.
It still was not a precedent. It wasn't something that was happening often at all.
Correct.
And yet they got 2, which is
Correct.
why people thought it was rigged.
Well, that's absolutely
know?
correct. And by the way, the Cavs have had a lot of good luck with the lottery. Brad Doherty, too. So, I mean, the Cavs have had a lot of good luck for the lottery over the years. So, all that to be said, I think what it comes back to is, yes, I know they beat the Suns. I'm telling you, these next stretch of games aren't bad, but it starts with the Bucks. They play 2 out of 3 with the Bucks. In between, they play the Clippers, and then they swing to play Boston, and then they go on a long West Coast swing. Folks, I went through with Jared. I don't know if the Cavs could easily go on a 9-10 game losing streak at some point. It is so easily attainable. So I just think winning these games now is not a bad thing. Jared, I don't know. Right around the time the tournament happens, I don't know how many more wins the Cavs are going to get.
Well, and I mean, there it is. I spent this season, like we've talked about on many occasions, Andy, just watching the box scores.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely there.
And even that, I've pulled away from, and I'm thinking more about the future.
Yep.
And when we're talking about thinking about the future, that's where I think my feelings and my opinions have started to change. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to our conversation that we had with Hayden Grove of Cleveland.com last week as he was entering the queue to watch a game and watch his high school friend play for the Cavs, Brandon Knight. As crazy as that story was, if you haven't read it or seen it, check it out on Cleveland.com. Hayden wrote a really nice piece regarding this whole story about him and Brandon Knight being in high school together, and now he's watching his buddy play for the Cavs. So,
very amazing. That's something rarely. The only story I can think of is kind of similar is Matt Stafford and Kershaw are best friends growing up.
Oh, I was thinking of The Sandlot and
right.
and Benny the Jet Rodriguez and the kid who narrated was up in the stands doing the game.
Well, for millennials who listen to the show, that's a movie and everybody should watch it.
I think they know. Their parents are smart enough.
I hope so. Anyways, continue on.
So right now what we're talking about is something that Hayden mentioned to us in regard to, we were talking about not playing players and why guys weren't playing. Is Kevin Love really hurt?
Right.
Is Tristan Thompson really not healthy? We're not worried about JR. We know JR is JR.
Yeah.
But Hayden alluded to the fact that Tristan just is not, he's checked out.
Yeah.
And it's not in a negative way towards the Cavs. It's just probably a lot to do with his personal life. I don't know.
People can read on TMZ and everywhere else what's going on with Tristan's love life, but he is self-destructing when it comes to that kind of stuff. And again, you can read the rumors and go down the Kardashian path and carousel if you'd like.
Right.
The bigger thing is here for on the court stuff is, as Hayden alluded to, Tristan is hurt, but is he hurt or is it more mental? Sounds like it's mental.
And what does that mean?
And then this happens here. Okay, I've now gone a full 360 on this since December. I think when the season ends, I think with Tristan's contract being in his last year, it's probably tradable. I don't know what you're going to get for him, Jared. I really don't. He was playing he had such a good run in November and December there. He was playing great. It's such a shame how it's kind of come up now, but for Tristan's sake, I think it'll be good. I think for the Cavs' sake, it'll be good. I do think it's time for the Cavs to really look for an opening and a place for Tristan to play, and it's probably not Cleveland. They're going to need to find a spot at home for him. I don't think this is going to be a good thing for him to come back. I actually think he needs a fresh start. I just do, as a person, as a human. It doesn't mean I love Cleveland to death. It has nothing to do with the city. It has to do sometimes with a person's outlook, and this is a job-related thing, not a city-related thing. So I think Tristan could really use a new place of employment. So I think that would be good for him, and I think for the Cavs, it would be good for them. It's clear Tristan's bothered. He's got a lot of things going on, and I just don't think it's good for this team going into next year. This year, it is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it. You're certainly not going to cut bait. So you got to just put up with it. But I think once the season's over and the finals end, I think finding Tristan at home would be priority 1, 2, 3, or 4 for me if I were Kobe Allman.
Andy, there's a lot to come down from in regard to a high when you're walking away from winning the NBA championship in 2016.
Yep.
And realizing in 2017 that it just ain't going to happen again.
Yep.
And walking into this season and seeing just how bad it has gotten. There's a lot of, I mean, you know what it's like, Andy. I've done it before where you get to the point where you do something so great and you're so proud of it and you love it, and then you're kind of left in a now what situation sometimes, mentally.
Absolutely.
Now what? And
I think that's why I'm saying, like, Tristan, I think in Tristan's case, yes, it's on the floor. I think it's a combination of many things. I think it's human life here going on.
Yes, exactly.
Tristan just needs a fresh start, and the Cavs really need to move on from this. So I think it's time to really, I would be surprised if Tristan's a Cav on tip-off next year. In fact, I don't think that's the right thing. I think Tristan should play somewhere else. So now with Love, I would love for the Cavs now to find a spot for Love. I've always been a Kevin Love fan. I think he does the city well. I've heard rumors and you've heard murmurs about him not wanting to play in Cleveland anymore. So that's one thing. But I do think the Cavs, they're going to have an interesting decision anyways with Love because I think they're going to get offers and stuff. But, if they lose both Tristan and Love, I mean, again, you're really looking at a huge rebuild. I don't think that's the way to go.
I don't think now's the right time either, especially with Colin Sexton, who I believe is going to be a part of this future.
Yes.
It's not that I think he is the defined face of this future.
No. But
I think that he's never going to, maybe he's never going to pan out to be even what Kyrie was. But Kyrie floundered for a long time in a sense on his own.
James Harden didn't play well the first season and a half. I mean,
right. We've talked. Yes, exactly.
I mean, here's the thing about Sexton. Sexton's got a lot of talent, and last night being the Suns game, to reference it, he only had, I think it was like 8 points, but he's plus 10 or plus 12 in the plus minus column. So you can tell he brought things to the table that improved the team.
Yeah.
Osman is playing better. I'm not there to the
And
point that I love.
No, we destroyed
I'll
him
just
all
say
year.
this. I don't love Osmond. It's going to take me a lot to say that. I am more of a Sexton guy.
Even Hayden stood behind and said,
That's fine. And Hayden and I will get into that at a different time. And we will get into it. I'm telling you. I think I talked to other people. They're in my corner. I think Sexton's the guy. Sexton, here's the thing. I'm not naive to this. Sexton is very raw in certain areas. And it's obvious when you see him play. Okay?
No.
It's obvious. Like, you can just see there are things he has to really improve on. Doesn't mean it can't happen. And he's still such a young kid. So that's for another conversation for another day. That's the Tristan story. Real quickly, and then I'll let you get to something. You know, here's the thing about JR. You're going to hear all these different rumors and stuff come up. Folks, Joe Varden from The Athletic hit it on the nail. And I was thinking the same thing even before I found the quote. Look, the Cavs aren't buying out full price for JR to go to the Bucks. And by the way, JR wants the money that he's going to get paid if he sits out. Nothing's going to happen. JR is going to stay off the field as a Cavalier. That's it. It's not going to change. It's going to take a miracle for that to happen, and I don't think there's any miracles in this happening. So J.R. Smith, it is what it is. I think he's going to be there until the end. And, you know, for what it's worth, I think J.R., again, you've alluded to it, so I'll allude to it one more time. He's meant so much to me. I'm a big J.R. fan, and I'm actually happy he's getting paid, and I hope he finds a spot next year. Because the Cavs are going to take the option of cutting him next year.
Well, and that's exactly what I was going to jump into, is that the rumors started bubbling up recently about JR and, you know, the Bucks sniffing around, but it just doesn't financially, it doesn't make sense anywhere. So,
no,
you know, that's that. Andy, you've got in here, we're talking about doing report cards and grades.
We're going to do this. Here's
this is a new idea for you?
No, this is not a new idea. We do this with every team for the end. We did it for the Browns. We gave grades. I don't know if you remember.
Did we give grades?
We gave Hugh Jackson an F even before he got fired. So look, here's the thing. We are going to give a report card, and I think it's an important time to do it for the Cavs next week, because after that, the tournament starts. After that, free agency starts. After that, the Indians start. And I'm going to be honest with you, the Cavs really do go on the back burner.
Does anyone get above a B?
Well, you'll have to wait and see. You'll have to wait. And by the way, we're going to throw all...
I don't know if anyone gets above a C. All right.
Here, I'm actually going to put this different report cards in different things, not just individuals and players, but moves, transactions, certain things there. Fans vote of whether fans should be cheering for wins will be a given report card.
Okay.
All sorts of fun things. That'll be next week. Now, look, for people out there who love college basketball,
so it'll be like doing prop grades.
It will be. But I think we have to do it then, because the following week we're going to do a Browns breakdown, and then the tournament happens and the Indians happen. And we're all being honest, the Cavs by that point really go onto the back burner of 2019-20. They just do. It's just being fair, right? I mean, come on. I mean, that's why you have to do it next week. It's your only week you can do it.
All right, well, that's that.
Yes.
At this point, I'd say, Andy, it's about time to wrap up. But first, before we get into our wrap up, let's hear from Thrive.
Hey, everyone. This is Adam Weinstein, the founder and CEO of Thrive Fantasy. For everybody who doesn't know, we're a new daily fantasy sports platform for prop bets. So definitely would love for you guys to check it out. We definitely have a lot of value and opportunity for you to make some money. Check out our deposit bonuses and matches via Pulse, and we'd love to see you on our app.
Thrive is a great place for daily prop bets with small wagers for big prize pools. It's very cool. It's very unique. It's not like DraftKings. It's more prop bets. You're not actually playing fantasy here. If you go to our Twitter handle, which is at CLE and Beyond, that's CLE and Beyond, there's a link. Click on it. Sign up. It's easy to do. Like I said, it's a lot of fun. And if you go to our homepage every weekend, clevelandandbeyond.net or andyandjared.com, every Saturday and Sunday, I pick not only my Thrive likes, I also do a basketball picks. I give my recap of the weekend. Go on there. It's a lot of fun. I'm a huge college basketball nerd, and I love that stuff. So, again, go to @Cleveland, @CLE, and Beyond to sign up for Thrive. And our homepage, clevelandandbeyond.net or andyandjared.com. You'll see my weekend selections for Thrive. I'll also give some prop bets I like from the college basketball scene. And there you have it. So now
and speaking of college basketball, Andy, ESPN had the highest ratings that they've ever had for a college basketball game, I believe, unless it was a regular season college basketball game. I'm not sure of the specific on that, but this Duke game with even with Zion getting hurt, the ratings for the game stayed. Nobody changed the channel, apparently, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Here's what I would say. This is why I love college basketball. Jared knows this. I love college basketball. I think it's one of my favorite hidden sports that people don't talk about as much, but I'm
Former
so
President
into.
Barack Obama was at the game.
Again, right. Spike Lee was at the game. There's several other celebrities at the game. It was a must-see game.
Yeah.
Watched every second. I'm sure people have. Zion Williamson had a Bo Jackson type moment where his shoe exploded on the court.
And Nike took a hit and a half. Oh.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. And he injured his knee, but it sounds like it's just going to be a sprain, so it's day-to-day there.
Yeah, he's not. I guess he wasn't playing in the next game. I don't remember if that's tonight or tomorrow. But he's not.
Saturday night, they play against Syracuse. And then to add another element to that, which is very sad news.
Awful. Yeah.
For people who don't know, or I'm sure people do, but if they don't, Jim Boeheim is a coach. And, when I moved from Ohio to Connecticut to take the ESPN job in 2002, I was very neutral about Syracuse and Boeheim.
Yeah.
Syracuse is definitely a rabid, as Jared knows, he went there, it's a rabid basketball school.
Yeah.
It's really, really big into basketball. And I don't know if I care for that so much, but I have really become a big Jim Boeheim fan. I really enjoy Jim. I think he's a great coach. I think he's a great mind. I root for Syracuse because I love Jim so much as a coach. I like what he does and like what he stands for. And it was so sad to hear he got in that tragic car accident where he was trying to swerve out of the road, hit a man who was in an accident ahead of him. No big stories outside of that. The guy died, which was terrible.
Right.
But Jim was not drinking. He's not a drinker.
No, well, I think the reason that the media made a point of mentioning that was because it was after a game that ended at 9:00 or 9 something, and
7 o'clock to 9,
it's happened at 11, close to 11:30 in the evening.
Yes.
The whole thing is just terrible.
It's a terrible thing.
Andy, I know the first game that I ever took my son to was when I was a student over at Syracuse University. The Air Force sent me to Newhouse to go learn broadcasting and stuff over there, and taking him to go and watch this. This was 2010, which was a really good season for Syracuse. They didn't end up going, I don't think, beyond the Elite Eight in that year. I might be wrong. But it was fun to watch, and I watched them at the Carrier Dome with my son, and that was his first game, and that's where I really started to become a fan of that team because I don't know, I just bought in, and I bought into Coach Boeheim for some reason. He's there's an aura there with that guy, there just really is.
Yep. Yeah, it's like I said,
down to earth. He loves to go and hang out at the local hot dog, of these Hyde's, where Hyde's is like a really famous hot dog shop in Syracuse, and he's just ingrained in that community, man. And it's not about. I almost feel like I don't want to take away from the fact that this isn't necessarily about him. It's about the man who lost his life. But it's tragic.
Well, you just feel, and by the way, you feel awful for that family, obviously. I mean, anybody who dies like that, that's a terrible death. Awful.
Right.
Jim Boeheim, you feel really bad for, too. You just feel bad for him because he was obviously trying to avoid an accident. Anybody knows when you drive in Erie, Pennsylvania to Cleveland, Ohio to Buffalo, Syracuse late at night after an ice storm, I mean, you're going to hit bad spots. So you just feel for Jim. He has decided to coach on Saturday night against Duke. So he will be on the sidelines for that. And I know John Wildhack, too. John used to work at ESPN with me, and I talked to John a lot before he took the AD job at Syracuse. And John's a real stand-up guy, and he wanted Coach Boeheim to coach, I think not just for anything more than he needs this because it'll help him mentally. So people should keep that in mind. This is nothing about wins and losses on Saturday night. It's more mental healing. Yeah. So I think this game is a lot more of a vibe to it. I would suggest people to watch it who listens to this 6 o'clock at ESPN on Saturday night. Ohio State's currently on the bubble. They're a 9 seed. They finally got a win They have another tough stretch. Felt like we said this about a week ago. So they have another tough stretch. They play Maryland on Saturday, Iowa at home. Iowa's been having buzzer beaters left and right. They lost to one the other night to Maryland, and then they go back on the road to my Boilermakers on senior night at Purdue. That's going to be a tough game too. Here's my one opinions. I've watched a lot of Ohio State lately.
Yeah.
Ohio State's got athletic kids. Of Ohio State, they have the look. They just don't shoot and put the ball through the hoop. They are a very bizarre
You ain't
team.
kidding. That's all I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, because when you watch them play, it's like, my God, they're athletic. They look, they're confident.
Yeah.
They just don't score.
It's that simple. It really is that simple with that
I've
team.
never seen it. This is bizarre. I don't see teams like this where it's like, wow, they're confident and cocky, but you've only scored 43 points in Lansing, and you were in 42 points about 8 minutes ago. So I just think the Buckeyes are obviously a year or two away. I don't think they're going to do any damage in the tournament. I really don't.
No.
I felt very differently at the beginning of the year. I don't now.
I think everyone did. I mean, they were early. They were early in the top 15, top 10.
Yeah. The one thing I would say about the Buckeyes, everybody keeps hearing about this class coming in. I think the Buckeyes, it's going to be an interesting year for two coaches, Archie Miller in Indiana and Holtzman in Ohio State. I think there's going to be some pressure to win more games at both institutions next year.
Probably.
And I think that's going to be something to watch. Archie especially, Indiana's going to have to win out to make the tournament now. So there's a lot of pressure in those two schools, and they are not lack of talent. Those two schools have talent. You can see it on the floor. So those are things to watch. Again, a big, tough stretch for Ohio State. I do think they'll make the tournament, but I don't think it's going to – I think you're going to be biting your nails. I think you're on the bubble all the way till the end, especially with the games coming up. In baseball, we kind of hinted at it. Manny Machado signs an unbelievable deal. I thought he had a bizarre line at the press conference. Hey, no pressure, just playing baseball. Okie dokie. I hope that works out for San Diego, as I'd like to see the Padres win, actually. I think that'd be a good story. But, I'll just be honest with you, unless your name's Tony Gwynn, a lot of talented players have gone to San Diego over the last 10 years, Jared, and they don't come out winners.
Did I hear wrong in hearing that Bryce Harper was also rumored to possibly be signing with San Diego as well? That sounds insane to me.
Well, it was, but that has now turned. I've been told, reading into sources and what everything else and things I hear on the ground, it sounds like the Phillies have really ramped up their efforts to get this done. And the Nationals have announced today they are out of the stakes for Bryce Harper. So it sounds like it's the Phillies. And I would actually, I think the Phillies, I will say this, and I hope I'm wrong. If I had to guess another team, Jared, I think the White Sox are the only other team left.
Well, Andy, the thing with all of this is, and again, I might be wrong, and I hate that I don't have it in front of me. But in regard to, how baseball fans get into the stats, and that guys like Mike Trout mean more for a win for a team than guys like Manny Machado.
They call it WAR,
and
WAR,
and, right? Is that what I mean?
Yeah.
So what we've also realized is big names don't necessarily. It's all about getting hot in baseball, especially at the end of the season. Right place, right time, and when you're contending. We do realize that the Red Sox have gotten better. The Yankees have gotten better. The Dodgers, I mean, there's actually an NL team now that's probably, that you could say is better than, possibly going to have a better season than the Indians, and the Dodgers are there. The Astros have improved. They're still going to be tough.
Michael Brantley will play well for Houston if he's healthy. If he stays healthy, he's going to play well.
I guess what I'm saying is it's not always the big names, and I don't know that the recognizable names. I mean, listen, my thing is you got a 10 years. Are you telling me that over 10 years for $300 million that Manny Machado is going to deliver 300? These contracts, I guess, Andy, what it comes down to me is teams improve without giving out giant, crazy contracts long-term to big names, and big names don't result in big wins or playoffs or sustainability. Do you know what I mean? Like, what is this for? Is it just for the attention?
Here's the one thing I'll say about San Diego. San Diego badly needs a jolt. In 94, the Indians made a jolt of a couple signings. They brought over Hershiser and Dennis Martinez, and they brought other guys. This is not on the, by the way, that is not the signing here.
No.
Machado's a much different deal.
Coming off not a great year.
Here's the one thing I'll say about the Padres. I'm a big Hosmer fan. Their infield is solid defensively because Machado's going to play third. The Padres should be winning games next year. We'll have to wait and see. To Jared's point, and it's a very fair one, signings like this in baseball are not like signings like this in basketball. They don't always equate to big wins. In fact, sometimes signings like this can become an albatross, as in Albert Pujols with the Angels right now. And there's many other examples over the years where we've had signings like this where they've really brought down the organization. Well, that happened with Manny Machado. Remember, the guy said in the middle of the year, I don't like hustling. And then he just said this press conference today, no pressure, just playing baseball.
Now imagine even the mental, Andy, of not delivering for a year and then feeling the pressure of needing to deliver the next year because you're there for 10 freaking years.
We'll
like, what do we, like that stuff?
We'll see. Like I said, I'm rooting for San Diego.
It's craziness.
Because I would love to see the Padres win. I think that'd be a great story. So I'll be rooting for, I'm not rooting for Manny Machado. I'm rooting for the Padres. I think that would be a good story to see them win. The other signing was Marwin Gonzalez.
This one means something. This is one that Indians fans are mad at.
Yeah, he's going to the Twin Cities. Very versatile player. He's listed as an outfielder, but really plays throughout
three different positions.
Really does. And really what happened here is they signed Brantley. They took Brantley in. They couldn't afford Marwin, and Marwin moved on. Marwin's not a game changer like Manny Machado, but Marwin will do a lot of things, and the Twins need that. The Twins lineup needs someone to fit in and fill in gaps where they can. The Twins definitely took a big step forward here today. Does that mean they're challenging
offensively?
The Indians? Well, their pitching's awful. I mean, there's nothing to discuss there. Their starting pitching's terrible.
And that's my point. Is it's a great move offensively. It's going to get them runs. It's going to make sense in the field. But at the end of the day, it does not even come close to making up the difference for what the Indians bring.
I agree.
You know, starting pitching wise, you know, that just isn't going to make. It's not going to make the difference.
No, I look. He's not a difference maker. The only thing again I'd say
would have been
about
for the Indians though.
Well, the Indians are not in that. They're trying to re-sign people right now. Here's the other thing too. People got to remember. Paul Molitor's gone. Rocco Baldelli is now the manager for the Twins this year. So the Twins are going through a big managerial change. You know, the Twins do have some changes. And again, that pitching staff, we saw it. It's a disaster. Now, look, Bruxton can hit. Segui, I forget how the third baseman's name right now off the top of my head, but he can rake. I love Kepler. He's the German outfielder. He has not played well the last season and a half. But man, Kepler one year torched the Indians the year they went to the World Series. Kepler owned the Indians. He torched them in 16. So Kepler can hit when he's on. Look, they have some good parts. They do. This helps. Does that mean the Twins are anywhere close to the Indians? No, I don't think that. But they're closer. The margin for error has shrunk again. The margin of error for shrunk. And it's a great time to announce this. Our next podcast, which will be rolling out 24, 48 hours later after this one, will be an all Indians preview show. We're not going to do any other teams. We're going to focus strictly on the Indians. I had strep throat all week, so there's nothing more I love doing than listening and reading about the Indians, which is what I did. I dug deep. We will get into Trevor Bauer. We will get into all of his dating habits. We will break down what's going to happen with his pitching staff. Where is Danny Salazar? How's Corey Kluber doing? We're going to get into all that. And then, I think,
and now Clevenger all of a sudden is on the radar, just like Trevor Bauer in regard to social media.
Jason Kipnis is walk year, basically, because it doesn't sound like the Indians are going to pick up his contract after this year. So it's a big year for Kipnis, not just for the team. This might be his last year as an Indian. Probably is. It's a big year for Kipnis. The new outfield. Bradley Zimmer looks good in camp so far. A lot of people are loving this young kid Bradley as a first baseman. There are some big positives. I don't think the bullpen's as bad as what people think.
No.
We'll save all that for more, but they're all Indians podcast next week. And Jared's going to love the Cavs grading section. I'm telling you, it's going to be great in the next podcast. You're going to love it too. And then in future weeks, Jared and I have talked about it. We'll have to figure out more we're going to do, Jared. I love, obviously for what I just did, I love the NCAA tournament, and we're going to figure out something fun to do for that. may not be long podcasts. We always say that, then we go on for 2 hours. But I would love to do a lot on the tournament, and we'll figure out what that's going to be. But for the next 48 hours, All Indians podcast. And like I said, we'll go into the Trevor Bauer. There's many Trevor Bauer articles. We'll get into all that stuff. He's mentioning Clevenger. Carrasco got re-signed. The Indians had the best starting five. There's so much that I think, you're
almost doing it now, Andy.
Well, I almost am. I guess here's a short summary. I feel very differently about the Indians than I did 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Right.
I'm
with
surprised
you.
I'm saying that.
I know.
And some of it's very good, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm actually excited now for the season. So
I'm anticipating it more than I expected.
Yes.
I really am looking forward to my MLB TV auto renewed.
Yes.
And I'm actually excited about all that.
No, I agree. I think the Indians have really amped up the effort. So, kind of recap the show. Everybody else is a mess, not the Browns this week. That was nice to see.
Yeah.
The Jalen Strong thing, I wouldn't put too much effort into it. I think Tristan Thompson's days are probably numbered in Cleveland as a Cavalier. I don't see him coming back. I'd be surprised if he's a Cavalier next year. The JR stuff, don't read too much into it. Winning against the Suns is okay. You feel bad for Zion Williamson. Hopefully he's okay. Terrible thing will happen with Boeheim. I think Syracuse and Duke, if you're sports fans, a must watch. And finally, Jared hates Manny Machado and the Padres. I think we hit all the check boxes.
Yeah, I think we got it all. I'm not a big Bryce Harper fan either. On Twitter @CLE and Beyond. On Facebook, facebook.com/Cleveland and Beyond. Shoot us an email, andyandjared@gmail.com. Check out the website and Andy's blog where he makes all his predictions. You can pick with him or pick against him if you want to win money.
Not a good week last week. Not
pick against him.
You know what? I'm going to go down this. See, he tipped me, so I got to interrupt him now. Let me just say, if you're up by 10-plus points in Lansing, Buckeyes, close the deal. I had you plus the points, and you couldn't even cover anything. And then the other one, Villanova, up 15 at almost going into half, collapsing, and St. John's the job. Jared, miserable.
And andyandjared.com, clevelandandbeyond.net is where you can check it all out. And don't forget, we are a part of the Pulse Podcast Network. Andy and Jared, Cleveland and Beyond. He's Andy Billman. I'm Jared Watson. Talk again soon. Take care.